Hello, hello. Oh, I snuck up on you, didn't I? Caught you on a good moment. Hi, everybody. You are live on Shally's Alley. It is Friday, February 20th. It is always Friday on Shally's Alley, my favorite day of the week, because basically Friday is the new Saturday. Saturday is the new Sunday, and Sunday is the new Monday. Isn't that true, though? So here we are, Friday, Shally's Alley, with very special guest, Anna Morgan. Hi, Anna. How's it going?
Hi, friend. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on here for sure. So, folks, for an introduction, Anna is the creator of the Evolve podcast for TA and HR, and also the Evolve conference, which just actually occurred not that long ago, a couple of
Weeks
four
ago.
four
Yeah,
weeks ago.
I feel
Yeah,
like I'm finally coming out of my Evolve conference coma. So,
coming right.
uh,
Yeah, it's a lot of
coming
work,
back to
isn't it?
life.
Yeah, so put together, and this was your second or third year for the Evolve conference.
Just my second.
Second
So,
year, yeah,
it was definitely a leveling up experience. So, and
pretty
I'm
amazing. It was a
so
great
grateful
event.
that you were a part of it.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, you invited me to that, and yeah, we've known of each other for quite some time.
Yeah.
And you're also the founder of Career BFF. So you got a
Yeah.
podcast, you got a conference, you got your Career BFF,
Yeah.
and just the passion and the enthusiasm to build community, which was what we wanted to talk about today. But I
Yeah.
wanted to kind of get people, give people a little bit of a glimpse of like your personal reinvention story, and talk
Yeah.
about um, career reinvention being the theme for today.
Yeah.
um, you've actually reinvented yourself a few times: recruiter,
It's
consultant,
called
coach,
shiny object syndrome for
founder.
the ADHD entrepreneur.
Yeah, and for its conference creator, and well done with that. what
Thank you.
what was what was the trigger, the moment that you realized reinvention wasn't optional but necessary?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it comes down to radical honesty with ourselves, right? In regards to the day-to-day work we're doing and how we feel about it, right? And if you're not, and you're in conflict and collusion about the work that you're doing, if it is not aligned with your values or impacts your integrity in some way, then you can get sick and you can burn out and you can underperform, right? So, for me, one radical honesty for me was developed when I got sober from alcohol more than 12 years ago. And that was kind of the beginning of that healing journey. And then
Okay.
the golden thread throughout my career, coming up in agency, navigating that whole world alcohol free and being a top producer and full cycle recruiter. Like I loved, the sales and the partnership with my sourcing and recruiting teams. Then to Fortune 500, corporate talent, to a layoff like many of our peers in 2020. And in that place was taking fast action to start coaching job seekers. And that, evolved from the job search hotline show with Michael Goldberg to, a year plus on Clubhouse with my job search angels, to, a year and a half of Ask a Recruiter on LinkedIn audio events, serving about 10K plus job seekers over that period of time, with the help of other, stage guests like yourself and Heather Colvin and Tabitha Kavanaugh and Brian Fink. And then, that really segued into I had been attending some events and I'm like, why didn't I know about these events when I was coming up and recruiting? The most training I received was, the bullpen objection role playing, right? How are you going to handle this on your cold calls? And then I had, kind of paid attention and I was loving being in community and in person. Secretly, I was lonely being an entrepreneur and, getting back into these conferences like Talent Net and Transform and, ERE and the Recruiting Innovation Summit. I was so like enamored by the experience and what they had built. And I was like, I want to build my own stage. And, vulnerably, I
That's how
knocked
Evolve
on
came
some
around.
doors
Wait, that's how
and
Evolve evolved.
it did evolve, right? So I had also put my hat to speak. I thought I wanted to be a public speaker in this space, and I was not getting accepted. And so for all of you that put your hat in for speaking, like, don't stop doing that. But radical honesty, I realized I didn't really want to be a speaker. Where I find the most joy and like that North Star is being able to pass the mic to other people in our space,
Okay.
and even people out of the space, to really foster innovation and, diversity of thought. And so I said, if not now, when? I'm going to build my own stage on my 50th birthday and create an experience with my community, and phoned all my friends and said, I'm putting together a
You phoned
conference.
me. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's my birthday. Come for the learning and stay for the party. And so that's how the first Evolve came to life. And I had 75 attendees, 10 sponsors, and 16 speakers. And we had a ball. And that was really like a signal that, there's enough to go around, and, why not build more spaces where our community from IC to executive have a seat at the table to have conversations that could be both about healing and mental health and well-being, but also AI, tech, your recruiting, innovation, efficiency, and the future of work, essentially. And then this year we leveled up probably 150 to 200 in-person attendees, 4
Gosh,
tracks,
that was pretty cool.
25 speakers, and 10 plus partners, and we got some cool
I know
stuff.
you managed to get some great vendors on there too, so that was pretty awesome. So it sounds like basically this evolution, it started as survival, and then it became sort of an identity shift.
Yeah.
And you learn somewhere along the way. You learned. I'm guessing, reading between the lines, you learned through hard knocks how to build community, because based on what I saw at Evolve, and how you interacted with everybody there, and how people were interacting with you, which is also very important. You've clearly got the community building down pat. Like but that's a rare skill set. Building community is rare. And I'm sure you made a lot of mistakes on the way there.
So many.
Yeah, because I'm still making them and I still haven't figured it out. So you're way ahead of me
but
there.
That's how we get better, right? Like,
yeah, yes, that's right. No,
recruiting career,
I'm not knocking the mistakes. I'm all for the mistakes.
Yeah.
It's just saying that you must have learned quite a bit through that process of reinvention and rebranding and trying to build community. So what would you say is the difference between rebranding yourself and actually reinventing? Because I mean, one thing is like, I think people do rebranding often just for the sake of it. Like I don't know if you followed that the hysteria around the restaurants. I forgot the name of it.
I was like, which way are we going?
The Cracker Barrel. Remember where they tried to do the rebranding and it seriously backfired? Like, did they really need to rebrand? I mean, they didn't really need to. So sometimes people just kind of rebrand for no reason.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, honestly, like in entrepreneurship, starting out, they always tell you, like, don't overly focus on the logo and the landing page. Like, just start. And that was definitely a lot of my advice. But, I feel kind of bad.
What's that difference, right? Between like just rebranding and reinventing? Like, where was
it's
that?
like they think, the branding is what's going to bring in the conversations or the opportunities, right? And so I think the human nature is like, let me gravitate towards refreshing my colors and my logos, my website. Just like job seekers overly focus on it's my resume. Well, the real hidden truth is that they're not comfortable networking, or flexing and working that relationship building skill. Because if I think back to corporate, where I had success was like I always operated as an owner within corporate, and I built
A
a
mindset. Yeah.
brand within corporate. And then those things were, career accelerators, and, opened more doors because I had natural ability to build relationships quickly and get access, which is ultimately influence. And when you have access and influence, then you can really grow your community exponentially. Did I say that right?
Access and influence. But then there's also, it's more than just access and influence.
Yeah, it is. And
It's also trust, because these people were trusting that you weren't gonna, let them
that I
down,
wasn't going
try
to
to
have
sell
you in
them
the back of
something,
the Denny's.
or try to like oversell them, or anything like that, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think with the disruption in our space right now, trust is a huge component of, I think, the entire ecosystem that we're navigating right now. And the way I'm focusing on maintaining that trust is, one, failing in public and building in public, and not just putting the highlight reel out there. I've shared about my family being in crisis, like leading up to Evolve, and how I was trying to navigate some really heavy stuff at the time this was about to happen.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, um showing up for others the way you would hope that they show up for you. And I've been, really nourishing and building that trust over my whole career. And that, is that accelerator, and what, makes that tipping point into, being able to make some bold moves like I have, and having options of saying, all right, I don't want to build an agency. I'm, kind of stepping out of coaching. And in this fourth quarter of my career, I love doing Evolve. It didn't feel like work. It freaking fires me up. And, we have enough people in this space to serve from a wide variety of, avenues and lanes. And, I'm excited to just bring more people together in service of helping us all be better.
So this event now this is going to be your full-time job.
Yeah.
No
Mhm.
more career ADHD.
I mean, one of the many humble lessons I've learned through this journey
Is
is,
the negative effect of career ADHD.
yeah, definitely, build some of those systems, and have some foundational components around, operations. Like, I'm a great salesperson and recruiter, but when it comes to the other stuff, I'm glad I know a lot of people that can help me out.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not sure if we kind of got to the difference between rebranding and reinventing.
Yes. So I was saying, like,
But
I was lucky I didn't necessarily have
have
to
to, yeah, go ahead.
reinvent in a way. And rebranding is storytelling, right? And your
Right. Yeah.
story changes throughout, your layoff in 2020 to the work that you've done. I think the key thing around a
Yeah. I think
brand.
rebranding, I mean, I've done that a few times now, but there's always like this essential brand. I mean, I'm known worldwide as, the king of sourcing or
Sourcing, yeah,
whatever,
the
but
godfather of sourcing that I was scared
right.
of
But there's
for
also other
years.
things that I do. And so I've tried to rebrand for
Yeah,
that, but as it hasn't really been, like you said, it hasn't really been reinventing per se, because it wasn't like, like I didn't just become a physicist or,
right.
something like
But
that. So it
people,
was learning new skills,
yeah,
um, and kind of letting go, learning to let go of the older identity where I'm not attached anymore to, if people talk about sourcing, I'm like, yeah, it's definitely, that's something I do, but it's not all I do, right?
yeah.
It's part of, and sure, I mastered it, but I'm mastering other things now.
And
So
that's a pillar of your brand, right? And I mean, bottom line, the human connection and trust factor comes from your face and your name. And then what follows from that. You speaking on a stage, doing workshops, volunteering, being in other, subgroups and communities, really are part of what that brand is. And, as soon as you think you got it nailed, then
Somebody
another,
else changes it for you.
well, yeah. And action creates clarity. And while sometimes you get down on yourself and like, oh, now I have to change this again about my business because I'm in that place of,
Right.
implementing a CRM and
Not
updating
again.
the website,
Right.
and transferring URLs and all the things. And
What do you think is harder though? Do you think it's harder to learn the new skills to do that? Like learning how to be a conference MC, conference, right? Or is it harder to let go of like your old self? Which one's harder?
that's a great question. I mean, what first came up for me was 50-50 because I did have a moment where I was
Okay.
like,
Okay.
"Oh shit, I'm letting go." Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Beep.
Yeah, you were
Uh,
letting go of like the contingency placement and all that. Yeah, right.
yeah, and that oh my God,
And you're
I'm
no
not
longer
gonna
a coach
be
of job
relevant.
seekers and
Yeah, because I'm not working an order today, right?
mhm,
And people need to remember, like, again,
proofs. Yeah, that's good.
having folks on stage, that aren't active practitioners or haven't been for a long time, as long as they're industry adjacent and touching the world of work, like they still have value and expertise and authority to share. And so I had to kind of sit in those uncomfortable feelings, being like, okay, yeah, this is new. And I am not an event person. I'm creative. I'm sales and marketing. I love like bringing my vision to life. And then my recruiting expertise helps me source and, hire all the people that I need to execute. And then I just totally lost my train of thought.
Well, we were talking about reinventing versus learning new skills. So really
Okay.
kind
Yeah.
of bring
So,
that back, ground that back into the what did you have to, what were the news, what was a stretch for you learning how to become evolve,
oh
right? What
yeah.
was the
So
learning
the
stretch?
whole event piece. And,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
like,
Which is a nightmare, by the
oh
way.
my God, it's so hard to keep everybody happy.
You can't keep everybody happy.
And as a recovering people pleaser, like,
Oh
I was
God,
like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah, I hear you there. So I made this huge mistake. I used to put on an event locally in Atlanta that was a
yeah, some of
recurring
y'all
event.
have been doing this a way
Um,
long time.
but it wasn't a conference, it was a workshop. So it was like basically a full day master class, and people would come in from all over the country to attend these classes.
That's
And
amazing.
I was so like I wanted to make sure I had a nice venue, people had a good place to stay. I made sure there was plenty of, breakfast treats, coffee, snacks, lunch, and a nice dinner and all that. And so the food was really good, and I got compliments
Yeah.
from people like, "Wow, this is really awesome food and everything." And we ran this for a number of years, um, and it was really challenging to stay profitable because hotels would like charge you back if somebody didn't show up
Oh my
and
gosh,
stuff
I've
like
got some
that, right?
stories.
Yeah, no, I know. So I'm relating to, I'm relating with you here.
Yeah.
Um, and then I asked people
Yeah.
at the next one, I'm like, so, how you liking the rooms, the food, everything? Oh yeah, it's great. I'm like, is this like, would you come back to this event if the food or the venue were different, like, because
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm spending half the budget in
Right.
food, and they're like,
Oh,
and several people gave me the same sort of answer, which was, Shally, we are not here for the food, we're here
yeah.
for the learning
And the
and to be with
community.
you and stuff like that. They're
Yeah.
like, you could literally hand out a bunch of sandwiches from Subway and we'd all be happy. And I was like,
You gotta
really?
know your
Yeah,
audience.
and
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, don't worry about it next time." So then I was like, "Wow, I literally have been working for the food company." Like my job has been making them money because
Yeah.
you know, and everybody's like, just put a pot of coffee and a case of soft drinks, and a
And a
bucket of
box of
ice,
Oreos
like
and call
literally.
it a
And I was like, you
workshop.
know what? That's so I didn't learn
Sometimes,
that
like,
lesson early enough.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, sometimes simplicity works.
Yeah.
The first year at Evolve, I hosted it at Infomart, which is a woman-owned background check company here in Atlanta, like 30 years in
Oh, was it a
business.
business?
And
Okay.
yeah, Tammy Cohen, she's like an OG female entrepreneur that, we ran in similar circles, and she had an entire meeting space with a commercial kitchen. So we did it in that particular space. And then this year, when I decided I'm like a hot shot event planner, I'm going to go with the Marriott. And as I, went through that process, I told the folks, like, I've never worked with a ginormous global company like Marriott. I'm not an event person. This is my background. Like, I'm going to need some hand holding, and please forgive me for my dumb questions. The TDDLR of all of that is, it was very traumatic experience for me. And now my sister is an official partner of Evolve Events Company, and is someone that I've done a lot of stuff together already, like in our space. And Shelly, she went toe to toe with the Marriott because I had to stand up for myself. I said, I feel like I am just being raked over the coals here. And you want to
they've been doing, this is what they do for a living.
$55 to plug in my outlet for my vendor. Like, really? You can't make an exception when I'm spending X, right? She saved me $10,000 just through that conversation.
Oh, wow. Oh my
yes.
God.
So,
and that, like, she came from an industry which is like used to doing that, right?
Well, yeah. And she's the director of sales for the Nashville Zoo. They were a partner, and, she's been running events, weddings, all the things for 15 plus years. So, she knows her stuff. And if I could not love a sister more on that Teams call, I was like, and then once she crunched the numbers and said, you would have overfed your guest. Like, they can make an exception. She got our room comped. I was like, I love you. So that was also like a radically honest kind of business career moment where I was like, there's my answer, because I really had been looking for a partner, and she was seriously right there. So having that awareness and just leaning into that is really setting us up for doing some more awesome stuff the rest of this year. So
awesome. Yeah. Repeating your word there. Sorry about that. But so I wanted to ask you something. Is, you designed belonging intentionally.
Try.
Well, I mean, you designed it intentionally. I mean, I think you did, but whether you did or didn't, the fact is you designed it intentionally. So, and I think you did. So would you say that community is the new insurance policy for your career? Like,
I mean, I've been talking about like career insurance,
career insurance. Yeah. And is community that? Is that?
Yeah. I mean, I really do think so, because if you, pull back all the layers and
is your network more valuable, right, than your resume?
I mean, do we want to split hairs and talk about the difference between your network and a warm and engaged community? I mean, we could.
No, I mean both. I mean, like your network,
where it builds from. And
right, exactly, right. So building a community from your network is the career insurance.
I think so. And so again, kind of showing up, building in public, having those public conversations in the comments, those convert to conversations. I know I'm a little chilly too.
Building in public, it's like, oh man, here you go. Here's all the warts and all the mistakes and all this crap.
But if you think about it, like, I think about what I would have been inspired to see when I was coming up in recruiting. Luckily I read Matt Charney's blog like early on. That was like kind of my connection to our industry. But, I try to share all different aspects of leadership lessons from, whether it's humanity, because leadership shows up in marriage and parenting and navigating, corporate life to, transitioning into entrepreneurship. And it's relatable. And so when we share relatable stories that accelerate trust, then, like we were talking before we hit record, it attracts your tribe, and then it rejects those that are like, she's like Facebook, type of energy. So I feel like community building and the ability to create, spaces where you can be of service, but also be leveled up organically by the people in the room. And that has been kind of the golden thread throughout all the shiny object community projects that
Really?
I've worked
Okay.
on the last
Okay.
5 years, is that um, the magic happened like on the Ask a Recruiter stage, where I'd be listening to Brian and Heather and my other stage host and be like, oh, I didn't think about doing recruiting that way.
Hmm.
And so there was this organic leveling up of us on stage, which then kind of moved into another container, Rise of the Recruiter, that Tab and I did for about a year. So just
Interesting.
paying attention to that. And then I would say building and like making those moves in that moment, which oftentimes, like as a creator, is hard to do, because like if you
It's
don't
really hard to
ride
pivot. It's really
that
hard to
wave,
pivot.
you get left behind,
Yeah.
really.
If you don't pivot in time, you get left behind. If you pivot too early, or if you pivot too late, or if you just don't pivot, yeah. And sometimes if you pivot, you make the mistake, and it's hard to come back
But
from
if
having
you've been
redirected,
Yeah, if you have
your
been
efforts.
having those public conversations, you know, networking and relation, like prioritizing a balance between in-person networking and virtual. Also, that balance between tech and IRL experiences, right? I'm really trying to be cognizant of how much I'm leveraging AI and tech and, hanging with my Chad GPT bud versus making
Jupity,
sure that I'm keeping my human in-person
hanging with
skills
Jupity.
sharp,
Yeah.
right? So I can talk to people when I get out, at conferences and
It's not really
whatnot.
been my strength, believe it or not. Talking to people, not always my strength.
Well, I mean,
Um,
you surprised me, and I'm glad, because of conferences, we were able to, get more FaceTime together, and me realize that I didn't have to be scared of you for some reason.
that was hilarious when you came up to me. You're like, I didn't want to talk to you because you're so
I was like,
intimidating. I'm
no,
like,
I don't want
what?
to be invited to his show, because he's going to ask me some like really techie, sourcey
Oh
questions,
my
and
God,
I'm going to be
no!
like, I don't
I
know.
got to work on that. I got to work on
So, I
that. But I
mean,
want to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh,
Yeah,
career insurance. Like, I just think
yeah.
anyone, whether entry level or experience, like
Start
getting
building
into
community.
some spaces and really prioritizing that is the best career insurance that one can have, because all of those little touch points are like trust deposits, right? That's your social currency, that is that trust builder. So when you do have a layoff, or you want to bring people in to celebrate a new thing that you're working on, you have earned the right to then say, hey, Shelly, you're in Atlanta. Can you come and speak at my conference? Right? All of those touch points and FaceTime that we had together,
Built up
really
to that. Yeah.
was that depth that, made that process to bring you into that experience so much smoother. And the same can happen for job seekers and,
Right.
other unexpected collaborations as well.
Unexpected collaboration. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something. This is a bit of a tough question, and I do.
Oh, great.
I know. Yeah. Sorry. I know. I kind of
Do I
warm
need to
people
write
up.
it down?
This is my thing, right? I get people comfortable and warm them up, and then I drop the 50-pound hammer on them.
Perfect.
There's a lot of conferences,
Yes.
and very few of them really create what I would call belonging, where you feel like you belong. There was in our industry a conference where there was a great deal of belonging,
Mhm.
and it's since eroded. But generally speaking, most of these events are just events. They're happenings, they're
Yeah.
moments, they're not belonging. What
Mhm.
separates an event from a movement?
Ooh, an event from a movement. Really, what I've seen and what I feel like the kind of evolve movement and momentum that I'm seeing is, when you are intentional and inclusive, that's from asking the right questions of your
Okay.
speakers, um, to knowing your audience. Like, I'm just going to be honest. I tend to attract neurospicy individuals. And, so that's more of the content and vibes that I'm around. And so organically, I'm going to be more inclined to pay attention to that. Right. Also, you know, caring about those things now and being more sensitive to things than I used to be. So and just trying to figure out ways that I can be supportive and inclusive from the food that, I serve, making sure that I have vegan and dairy free and gluten free
Mhm.
options to, um, you know, having those smaller rooms, and the round tables was very intentional to really spark conversations. Now, there's all other things that I wanted to do that I didn't get to do around,
Sure,
ways
but yeah, you're
to
evolving. Get it?
I know, there's only so much time,
Uh,
but I would like to,
evolution takes
have
time.
some gamification ways for
Mhm,
people to
mhm.
connect,
Gotcha.
or a way to go find people based on
Ooh, that would be
um,
fun. Yeah.
different questions like, who's done a TED talk here, who's known for this, and you,
Can I tell you a story of a
yeah,
really cool way to connect in a conference that I thought
love it.
was pretty awesome? So there was a company that I worked with, and this was a TA conference internal. So huge
Okay.
company, lots of TA people. Everything from HRIS to, it wasn't just recruiting; it was
Yeah.
the entire vertical function, right?
Hmm.
And quite a large group,
Hmm.
bigger than most recruiting conferences, because it was everybody paid for by their employer. And
Okay.
they wanted to find a way to get people from like HRIS to connect with recruiting, or coordinators with HRIS, or HRBPs with stuff like that. And so every team was given every member, or every person, but every member of a team was given a one of those like caliper things. What do you call it? The
Oh yeah,
carabiners.
that clips on your
A
backpack.
carabiner.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody was given a carabiner, and
Okay.
your carabiner reflected your color. The color of your carabiner reflected your team, and it
Hmm.
had your team name on it. So they were all
Cool.
different colors, right? But like, say the 20 of us that worked in here, we had the same one.
Hmm.
And the challenge for the event was, during the entire event, for the entire duration of the event, they didn't give you a specific, now is the time to, it was like, this is your carabiner. You can take it home with you if you want,
Okay.
or you can
Or-
trade it. And
Okay.
the idea was to trade carabiners with the most people, and the person who ended up with the most colors,
Yeah.
or different
Yeah.
carabiners, was then granted some sort of prize,
Yeah.
right? And it
Oh,
forced
fun.
people from groups to make alliances and go around swapping their carabiners, so that
Yeah.
eventually, like, one group ended up with, instead of 20 people with green, they ended up with
Mhm.
20 different colors, right? That was kind of the
Yeah.
objective. And
Yeah.
so um, that was fun, because it gave me the opportunity to look around and be like, oh, that's a color I don't have, right? And then be like, what
Right.
team are you in? And and it was totally during breaks, in between, in the hallway, at the social
Hmm.
hour. It was a
Yeah.
2-day event, so it even happened at night,
Yeah.
during the social time and stuff like that. And
That's
that was a lot
fun.
of fun. Just, I'm not saying you should go do
Well,
that,
and those are
but
things that like I've designed.
that's
I
it.
just didn't
Yeah,
quite to get to execute.
that's the gamification, right?
I mean, I grew up in a household of a family entertaining, and like, my opa, my grandfather, every Christmas Eve would have us play this game where he would come up with a theme, and it would be a person, place, or thing, and he would tape it on our back. Oh, I wanted to say hi to Jason and Audra and everyone that's been in the comments. Thank you for being here. Um, so, and then you had to figure out what you were,
Yeah, right.
and, you know, work can be fun. And, that was something honestly, like I struggled with in corporate, because I was like, why don't you want to dress up as firefighters? We're in HR and talent, and they're like, wah, wah, wah. So, if I can have fun in hosting my own conference, you can bet your bippy I will.
Right, right.
And that's from having a DJ in the hallway to,
But oh, that was
um,
fun. Yeah, that was. I was, every time
a
I walked by, I felt
flexible,
like I was being like I would feel like I was in a movie, like Rocky, like da, 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 da.
yeah. It
Um,
just, keeps the energy up, to my photographer who encourages people, to get their personality out. And,
right. Don't
those
pose.
photos turned out fun. Yeah.
um, I wanted to call out this. So Jason said something that reminded me that I
Oh,
wanted to ask, or not ask, but mention this. Um, So, in separating an event from a movement, an
Yeah.
event that's just an event, that's a moment that happens in time. You go there, you take notes, you learn. That could be any classroom, anywhere,
Mhm.
versus a movement where you have like memories that last for hopefully a
Yeah.
while. One of the things that what he mentioned on the chat there is that you intentionally designed psychological safety, which I think in a room full of HR and TA leaders that can be very uh, forward, let's just say,
Yes.
it's kind of hard to build psychological safety in a room full of people that are so used to talking about all the difficult things and difficult. This is not a group of people that is used to being, um, you know, playing it safe.
Vulnerable?
Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying?
Let's just say it, vulnerable.
Yeah. So how the hell did you put psychological safety
I
into
mean,
a
listen,
setting where, like, I don't know. I was just like,
I
damn,
did not,
you didn't do it.
I wasn't exposed and I wasn't given tools to be, an ally like early in my career and
Ah,
learning around, just how to serve humanity in a bigger capacity, right? So, this is a skill that I'm developing as I'm doing it, right? And that's always going to go back to lived experience, from that space of what worked or didn't work, right? And but I feel like my strong opinion is that, you know creating a psychologically safe environment is a space where, we can have these leaders talk about healing and burnout, decision fatigue, pandemic burn, whatever the latest,
Mm,
vulnerable pain point is from a leading people standpoint, right? Um, and build those spaces where we can kind of sit in that uncomfortable space. And through that, that's when those layers start coming off, right? Typically, what we may experience in other conferences in the hallways, right? Where you talk about a
right.
difficult search or how
Versus you
you did
actually made
something
space for
and
that. Yep.
somebody said, "Holy cow, Shelly, like I felt the
Mhm.
same way," or whatever that might be. So I wanted to take those hallway experiences and put them, into small
Yeah.
breakout rooms in a sense, and
I
really
got you.
kind of let things go organically from that space, but making sure that, I have
But supervising
space
so
for
it doesn't go off the rails, because that can
right.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and the communicating that this type of event is, I don't want to be a blend of a retreat and a conference, but it's um these topics, whether it's parenting or aging parents or, all the different things that we as humans navigate in the corporate world, but aren't allowed to talk about, really bringing more of those conversations to the table and kind of tying back in the movement piece. When I'm building something like this and I have awesome community members in my back pocket, right? When we're together, it goes from it being Anna Morgan's event to a community event where everyone's a part of like building it, where, we had some of the community calls beforehand and people were helping out, with introductions to sponsors or email list or an introduction to a big employer in Atlanta. And that, for me, is what I see as a movement where it's shifting from just an experience to something bigger and for me more meaningful because the more people that are a part of building this, one, it can be a little bit different, a little bit edgy, but very impactful, and really showing and being a part of this community and looking to people that have built these spaces way before me. Craig Fisher, Kara with TA Week, David, with ERE. Like, I mean, those folks are just icons, and I have the utmost respect for what they've built. And I would love to figure out ways that these events can partner together and support the community on an either even bigger organic kind of way. And that's the idealistic, future forward visionary ideas that I have around kind of this space, because I feel like sometimes while we go for the networking, it just seems very much like a repeatable kind of experience.
Mhm.
And, I want to keep people safe, but also shake up their nervous system in a little bit to
Yeah,
wake them up
yeah,
a little
different,
bit.
right? Did you from what you heard and where and the feedback and everything that you got at the event, did you get a feeling for what people in HR and TA are not being honest about when it comes to burnout and
Yeah.
reinvention? Yeah, what are we covering
I
up?
mean, I think the common thread, and I hopped around different rooms, but I've had one-on-one time, with this profile of leader, for the past 2+ years, and it's that slippery slope, when they're in that leadership role, um, transitioning into more authentic authority and vulnerability, especially if they haven't. Been able to do any of their own healing work is almost impossible, right? And that all comes back to radical honesty with self, right? And if people have to get help before then they show up to work in a different way, then they should definitely do that. But yeah, they're afraid. They're so taxed and so overburdened, oftentimes running with way less people than they should, and tasked with compliance and putting out fires. And I believe in having HR and talent in the room together, because I've been in rooms where we're not so kind to each other, but if we understand each other's function, and respect that and figure out better ways to work together, that again will accelerate helping to calm the disruption in our space, I believe. So yeah, they're not really talking about anything. And it's oftentimes like a privilege for them to get to an
Hmm.
event like that. What I'd really like to challenge is the companies that aren't prioritizing or giving their employees, accurate budgets for professional development and
Oh,
continuing
yeah.
education, because that's important.
Yeah, and they keep cutting back. It's like the
Yeah.
training slash professional development is the first thing to go. Um,
Right after the recruiters.
yeah, yeah, and then and yet sometimes recruiters are the first ones to come back. But
Yes.
so I I wanted to. There's an after hours access to Shally's Alley that's inside of my community. That's the
Oh, fun.
paid community,
Yeah.
and I wanted to offer folks something that they could get exclusively there. Do you think that you could put together like a one-page cheat sheet on
Yeah.
community building? Like, what are the
Yeah.
steps or the what or the gotchas for and so that would be a really cool
Just
handout.
start. It'll say a paper that says, just give it
Just
a try.
start, yeah, right. Something that that would be like a nice handout or takeaway. That way, folks can
Sure.
get show extras at TSI, and
Absolutely.
that'd be great. Also, I'm going to invite you to come in and be a member of that
Awesome. Thank
class.
you. I would love
Um,
that. And I would be even willing to, do a special code for Evolve Virtual,
oh,
that is
awesome,
going to be
perfect.
a recording of everything that we
That's
just
great.
did.
You heard
So
it here,
there's,
folks. So you get a discount code on Evolve Virtual,
yeah,
and
coming this
you get a
fall.
handout on building communities, which
That's your
is
career
awesome.
BFF
That's
here.
right. So, in closing, I wanted to give you the stage. Not that I've taken it away from you or anything, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to give us something to introspect on. In other words, give us a question that we can ask ourselves and chew on and ruminate on over the weekend. Something that causes us to have a deep thought about any of the things that you talked about today or are passionate about.
Yeah. Um, the two things that immediately came up is, if you have a story to tell or a framework to share, or an idea that is relevant in this space, or want to share how are the best sourcer or, closer with what you do, right? don't be afraid to, put your hat in the ring to grab the mic. The other thing is encouraging other events to really look at, ICs and middle folks coming up in the industry to pass them the mic and give them that first shot. And if you're feeling that nudge, definitely act on it. So this weekend, take some time to, look at
Ask
what's
yourself.
coming, because we're still at the very beginning of conference season.
So are you saying ask yourself who's the individual contributor in your sphere that should get the mic?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, or am I, someone who's
Or
ready
am I the right?
to take
Raise
the
your
bold
hand if you want.
step? Yeah.
Okay.
And don't wait for someone to tap you on the shoulder.
That's a great question. By the way, I will echo if you want to raise your hand and be a first time on stage and you're afraid of going to a physical event to do that, you're more than welcome to come to the show and be a guest here, or perhaps on your virtual conference. So that's a really good one. Ask yourself, are you the person that should get the mic, or do you have someone in your network that should get the mic that maybe they haven't had the courage
that has an interesting hack or a way they approach things,
just
like
whatever, right?
I
But
think
they haven't been given the mic, so who should get the mic? I like that.
So think of that, and noodle on that, because how are you also prioritizing your own professional development and relevancy? Going back to your question earlier about HR and talent leaders, their struggle is, I can't keep up. I'm going to be a dinosaur because I'm not up to date on all the things. So I think there's a big fear around that. And so, getting in community however you can, balancing between in-person and virtual, and then find that radical honesty and, sit with yourself around, what do I have to say? And who in my community is someone that is doing bold shit or good stuff that, really deserves some amplification and celebration around what they're building or trying.
Okay. All right. That's a lot to ask. Who deserves amplification?
But make sure you rest.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to say there was an article. It's not an article. It's actually a research paper by the NBER, the National Bureau of Economic Research. And actually, I'm going to put it up here I believe I can put it in the captions here. Let's see.
Does this tie into
what you just said? It ties into being a dinosaur. And so I want to say this is a research paper. They did a study of 6,000 senior executive CEO and CFOs across the US, UK, Germany, and Australia. And they asked about AI and obsolescence and everything. And I just want to put people at ease. Things aren't happening as fast as you think they are. There's a lot of hype out there. This research report is a serious research report by a research organization. And what they found was that nearly 90% of these 6,000 senior leaders, CEOs, reported zero impact on productivity or employment over the past 3 years from AI. In reality, it is not all the hype of these people trying to sell you AI tools. They're trying to sell you something. It's not happening. You're not becoming a dinosaur overnight, no matter what people are trying to sell you. It's just not happening.
You could buy into all the fear from the Anthropic research.
Don't buy into the fear.
If Sally and I have been around as long as we have in recruiting, just know that we'll still be standing in another 10 plus years.
I mean, things change, but they're not, what they're saying is they haven't changed that patterns. Fast.
And this is one of the cool things about, neurospicy people. It's like, you see, we hire all the recruiters, then we lay off all the recruiters, and it's insanity doing the same thing over and over again, expecting.
Well, Anna, this was fabulous, as I expected it to be, and even better.
I forgot we were live. I was having
we're totally live. So we're gonna shut that down and give people a chance to go about their week and have a great weekend and think about who should get the microphone.
Yes.
And get some rest and come back to tsiuniversity.com for the handout and the discount code.
Awesome. Well, super fun evolving with all of you. Until next